We're going to be talking now about the spiritual gift of giving. The definition of it is the ability to give of material resources with cheerfulness and generosity, even when sacrificially. It is this ability, this God-given ability to where you can see that someone is in need and you can meet that need. You choose to naturally. So, here's the difference. We're all called to give. We're all called to give with a cheerful heart. But I don't have the spiritual gift of giving. Whenever I give, it's tough. It is not easy. It's something that you start going, man, I know this person needs $200, but I also feel like I need it. For every other person, that's good. For the person with spiritual gift of giving, they go, I can go without.
They need it more than
They need it. It's immediately to, and it's a natural flow to them. It's a natural flow of, I just want to give. Now, another way to phrase this is, it's the supernatural ability to meet needs. Some of the traits would be, they would give the shirt off of your back. It is just, if you describe someone that way, they probably have the spiritual gift of giving. They're often good at handling finances. If you're going to be if you're going to have the spiritual gift of giving, typically you need to have a good handle on your finances to be able to give. They're prudent with resources. You give someone the spiritual gift of giving something, they're going to steward it very well. They don't just see opportunities to give, they seek opportunities to give. They want to go out of their way to do it. They have a desire to see finances handled well. Someone who gives, especially when they're giving to a church, to Range Hills or elsewhere, they want to make sure that the finances are used wisely. If they're acting holy, if they're doing it sanctified, they don't do that as a bully, but they do care. They want to see every penny being used properly. They want to see no waste. It's not limited to the wealthy. And it's not limited to money. You can give of food, clothes, and much more things. So don't think, well, I'll have the spiritual gift of giving once I have $1 million. The person with the spiritual gift of giving will give before they have money, before they have a lot, and they will give of anything. Now, this is where giving in service can sometimes look very similar, because sometimes giving someone food can look like service. You're going to make someone food, you're going to put all the work into that, and you're going to then give it. Whereas the person with giving, they're not thinking in terms of the cooking and all that stuff, they just want to give and help. And so it can show up in different ways. They're often mission-minded. Someone with the spiritual gift of giving cares a lot about missions. They have a heart for missionaries. And so they're very active in missional work. My grandfather had this spiritual gift, and so I got to see that in my life of someone who he really did. He was very quick. He wanted to give. When I was at his funeral, and then also at my grandmother's funeral, we had the reception line where the family was lined up, and it was incredible to see people come through. No one in the family knows them, but they went, your grandfather paid for my college. Your grandfather did this. Your grandfather made it to where I could go on this mission trip. And in that, and what's wonderful, this is just another detail, the person who gives often doesn't want recognition. Coolest thing about my grandfather, he's passed on, and so I can brag about him now, but he said whenever he gave someone, don't name anything after him. He took very seriously where scripture said, if you get your reward on earth, you won't receive it in heaven. He wanted his reward in heaven, so he would give to places like Liberty University and other places, and he would tell them, do not name anything after me. I don't want to lose rewards. Don't name a single thing after him. And so that's the giving heart. That's the spiritual gift of giving. It's not just their giving, it's they don't recognition. The person who gives and then goes, hey, can you put my name on the pew or on the pulpit or on whatever it is? That's not the spiritual gift of giving. The spiritual gift of giving doesn't want recognition. And so, and that's just, the spiritual gift of giving wants to. They're seeking it. It doesn't happen on them, they're looking for it. They look around the room and they go, who's someone that I can be helping? Who's someone I can give to? And so, that makes sense about the definition of the spiritual gift of giving. Any questions on that? Alright. Let's talk about how it can be used in evangelism. One of the ways is the person with the spiritual gift of giving can help down on their luck people and use that as an opportunity to share the gospel. You go out in homeless ministry. You see someone who they're hurting, they're just, life has beat them up. And you're like, I want to, the spiritual gift of giving can see that, and they can help them in some way. That could be financially, that could be clothes, that could be food, and then using that to turn it into a gospel conversation. It can be used to buy groceries for someone. You can go to a store and you can see the person behind you, and you can see that they're a struggling young mother, and you pay for the diapers, so that way you then can share the gospel. With that, can notice people in need versus those who want to take advantage. Part of that also, person with spiritual gift of giving usually has good insight into that and can recognize when to actually withhold giving for the good of someone. And so in evangelism, sometimes doing that, of going, I'm not going to give you the thing you think you need. I'm going to give you what you actually need. And so...
and God doesn't look on that as He is grateful that we do what we're supposed to. Even if this person did not do what they were supposed to, that you're taken care of, if you've still done it out of your heart. And you've done the right thing.
Absolutely. And so that's where...
We don't ever know whether, when we do things like that.
Absolutely. And that's where the spiritual gift of giving can have good discernment, because, well, yes, the Lord rewards what we do in faith, and sometimes it's the other person. Sometimes it is still, you can recognize this is not the best thing for them to give.
Right.
Does God give us everything that we ask for?
Exactly.
No.
And that's where the spiritual gift of giving comes in. Yep. And the spiritual gift of giving can recognize those things. Can recognize even down to when you're evangelizing your children or grandchildren. Oh, they're down on their luck, but it's because of their own bad decisions. Being able to go, I'm not just going to enable you. Being able to instead be able to go, I'm going to give you what's best for you. I think that's part of also the spiritual gift of giving when we're taking that step back. It's really when it's talking about meeting someone's needs, it's being able to perceive what someone's need actually is. A lot of us, we see surface level and we assume people's needs. We see a homeless person and we assume, oh, they need money. We see a young single mother and we go, oh, they just need to have diapers bought for them. But sometimes what people need isn't actually for you to give those things. It's to help them in different ways. And so it's not the spiritual gift of blanket generosity. It's a spiritual gift of giving people what's best for them. And in evangelism, recognizing those things and going and using that. The thing that the person with the spiritual gift of giving needs to make sure to do is don't just give, evangelize. End of the day, if you have the choice between I'm going to give something to someone, or I'm going to evangelize someone, you evangelize. That's what you did. That is the how it lays out. You don't give and then fail to evangelize the lost. You evangelize. If you can give, you give as well. And so the spiritual gift of giving can do it that way. That makes sense on how it can be used in evangelism. How it can be used here at Range Hills. Can be someone who gives above the tithe. We're all responsible to tithe. The gift, and then we're all called to give that tithe generously and go beyond that cheerfully. The person with the spiritual gift of giving can go even more beyond that and can give and can recognize that. Can provide extra food at events. Oftentimes we have potlucks of Young at Heart, and sometimes you can tell the people who they don't bring one dish, they bring 5. That's helpful, especially now that you have me as your pastor. I'm hungry. How it can be used here is noticing people in need. Something here of like just in making sure that we know when someone is in need, when we know someone needs help. That's where that spiritual gift can make sure that it's seen. Sometimes things slip through the cracks because people see something but they don't inform someone. And I can't see everything. Alan and Anthony can't see everything. Sometimes the spiritual gift of giving can come in and go, hey, I'm recognizing this. And they don't just say, church do this. It's, hey, I'm recognizing this. And I really think we as a church, this is something that the church needs to do together. And acknowledging when it's something that is, they can personally help versus, okay, the church needs to step in on this. Can give to missions, which is mission trips, church planting, and missionaries. Hopefully we'll be doing mission trips out of here. We'll find connections with different church plants and different missionaries, and we'll go out and we'll need to raise funds for that. Some of the spiritual gift of giving, they might not be able to go on the trip, but they can support someone who does. Then can help us remember that giving is necessary. Money is an awkward conversation. It always is. It's awkward between Ashley and I when we have to talk about finances. We're about to get married. I know for a fact that when you have to talk finances with your spouse, it can get awkward. It gets more awkward when we get into the church setting. I don't want to be the pastor who's seen as I'm just trying to make money off of you, but I also need to make a living. We have things going on. We have insurance. We have repairs on the building. We have outreach events. We have electricity bills. Money is necessary to be able to keep the church going, at least in the way that it currently exists. That's not bad. There are churches that they beat up people and they make people feel bad. But I also know, I have friends who, that if a pastor's preaching through a book of the Bible and it comes to giving and he brings up tithes, they get upset about it. And it's like, no, never talk about giving, never talk. And it's like, no, we have to talk about it. What helps the pastor is when I don't have to. When the person with the spiritual gift of giving can help the church as a whole recognize that, it makes it to where I don't have to go out of my way. I can just continue on through exposition of scripture. My hope is I never have to do a special sermon series on giving. I know pastors who do it. I know a pastor who every February he does one. Now, there's pastoral wisdom in what he does there by doing it consistently. He doesn't get church people mad at him because they all know he's doing it every February. That's smart. But at the same time, that's not what I want to do. I want to be walking through books of the Bible with y'all. I want to be continually just expounding scripture and saying what it says. And when it comes across something that talks about giving, it just naturally is talking about it. And the person with the spiritual gift of giving can help me be able to exercise my giftings in that by keep helping the rest of us keep the focus on, hey, we still need to give. We need to give of our time. We need to give of our things, of food and other things. But we also do need to, we're coming together as a church to say we believe this matters together, so we're financially going to work together to not just make sure that Range Hill survives, but actually thrives. And so can help there. That makes sense on how the gift of giving can be used at our church. Okay. How it can be used at home. If you have the spiritual gift of giving, you can show your spouse or your children, your grandchildren, love through giving. My mom loves to give. She, on Christmas morning, she likes watching us open presents more than she likes getting them. We can do that. We can go above and beyond. That's a way you can show love. You can teach your family that it's better to give than receive. Something that is because if you have the spiritual gift of giving, you're more reserved about it. You sometimes can forget that you can teach using it. And so I would strongly encourage you, don't brag about your giving, but show your children and your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren about how you give. So that way they know. You're not bragging about yourself, but you are exempling what you do. And then you can lead your family to save so that you can give. In Ephesians, I want to say it's Ephesians, it says, let the thief steal no longer, but rather let him work so he can give. Exempling and leading the family to go, we're going to do this. We're going to give. We're going to budget to where instead of getting the extra stuff that we want, instead of getting the nicest car, instead of getting our nails done twice or every week, instead of going and spending money on fancy dates in fancy steakhouses, instead of doing all those things, we're going to actually hold it back and save, so we not just give normally, but we can give above and beyond. So that way, when we see someone else in need, we can quickly give. The best financial situation you can be in is when you don't have to think twice about if you're able to give to help someone.
You'll never
That- if you're there, and here's the thing about that, that has nothing to do with the number of zeros in your bank account. That has everything to do with how you spend and budget. And so the person with spiritual gift of giving can lead their family to do that. Now there are some drawbacks to the spiritual gift of giving. The spiritual gift of giving can be duped. Now, they do have good discernment, but if you're a person who wants to give, oftentimes you're going to believe the best in people. And so it's very easy to get scammed, to be bamboozled, to have someone who says, hey, I'm going to use it for this, and then they don't. Miss Patty's right. The Lord is gracious. But let's go back to the concept of the spiritual gift of giving. They want what they're giving to go to what is meeting a need. So if you have the spiritual gift of giving, and you came to me, you went, Clayton, I know that you need this money to pay for this thing. And I go, I absolutely do. And you gave me that money. And I went and spent it on food or on lotto tickets or on something else. You probably would be upset. In that,
I'd probably be plotting your murder.
Joel,
Okay, and
it would be, you don't get any more money. It's so, but at the same time, spiritual gift of giving wants to give. If you end up in, well, you're not getting any more money, in that same way, they can't exercise their spiritual gifts. So it's this balance. There's a drawback. They can get duped. They can sometimes overgive. This is where it's important that the person with spiritual gift of giving handles their finances well. If you give too much, you still have bills to pay. And you are obligated to your bills before you're obligated to give somewhere. You're obligated to give your tithe, but there's never going to be a point when you ever hear me say, don't pay your rent, give to the church and give to missions. No, if you rent, you owe something to your landlord. You give what you're obligated first. Person with spiritual gift of giving can accidentally overgive and not be thinking about it. And so that's a drawback. They can start feeling like they alone give. We're all obligated to tithe, and so sometimes the person with the spiritual gift of giving can go, well, I give above my tithe, why isn't everyone else doing the same thing? It's like, no, we're only required to tithe. Everything else is faith in the Lord and abundance in that. And so we can't be angry about someone not matching or giving there. And so spiritual gift giving can, if they get in their flesh, it can be like that. Sometimes they can think giving means ownership. Now, this sometimes comes out of the person with spiritual gift of giving turns into they start misusing it and they start wanting their names on things. Sometimes they still want to be behind the scenes, but they want to dictate what you're doing. They want to come in and say, hey, I'll give you this check, but you have to do this. That's not the spirit. That is a corruption of the spiritual gift of giving. To use money to dictate. Now, there's a line, because you do want to say, hey, this needs to be used for things that are biblically sound. Hey, don't use these funds to pay for that when this is a fundraiser to pay the parking lot. That's where it comes into where even how we as a church, when we come and say, hey, we need to raise funds for something, we want to be careful on that to where you don't give to everything when we might need it other places. And so that's where the wisdom on church side and leadership side is making sure there's not so many designated funds while being honest with you. Because the worst thing we can do is designate funds and then go, hey, we're actually using this for something else. Well, you designated those funds. You said you wanted them for something else. We can't go back on it. And it's actually illegal for us to go back on it, but churches still do it. So you have a responsibility to the giving. The person with spiritual gift has that, but sometimes that can become a drawback if they think they now have ownership. They can dictate. They can say, you're going to do it this way. I'm going to give, but you're going to do what I tell you, and that's not good. And then with that as well, they can use their money as leverage. They can start going, well, if you're not going to do it my way, I'm just going to go to another church. Just so you know, if you ever do that to me, I'm probably going to say, okay, let me help you find a better church for you. Yeah, I don't operate that way. But spiritual gift giving can turn into that when you get into your flesh. Some things that we can learn from the spiritual gift of giving is that giving is meant to be cheerful. All giving, even obligated giving. Our tithes is something we're commanded to do. When we're obligated to do it, we're still to be cheerful about it. We're still to give with gladness. We're still to give out of a heart of joy. And the spiritual gift of giving can teach us that. They can help us notice needs quicker. It's very easy to come into church, to come into your community, to come into your home, and you immediately just start looking at, what do I need? And you put it in that way. You don't say, what do I want? You might, what do I need? I need the house to look like this. I need my wife to do this. I need this to be done. And stop. What's the other person need? What's other people in the church need? Spiritual gift of giving helps us see that, helps us look outward and be able to see other people's needs first. And then with that as well, knowing what other people's needs are, not what their wants are. Sometimes people do properly communicate their needs. Sometimes people are only communicating their wants, and you have to dig deeper to find out what their actual needs are. Spiritual gift of giving can teach us that. So, that's what I have on spiritual gift of teaching. Any thoughts or questions?
Giving. You said teaching.
Giving? Did I say teaching on the end there? My bad.
Yes.
Giving. My bad. Giving. Yes.
So the verse in Ephesians is 4:28.
4:28.
Yeah,
Thank you.
4:28.
Any other thoughts or questions?
Spiritual gift of giving can be taking your time to help that person just by listening.
Yes. Time can very much be that. I actually had that written down and forgot to say it. It can be. Time is one of, and this is where the spiritual gift of giving can end up being a little bit different than the spiritual gift of service. And in that as well, this is where it probably actually the spiritual gift of giving and service can sometimes rub up against each other and have conflicting views. Spiritual gift of giving is going to notice what someone needs. Service is going to go to immediately the other things. They're not thinking about the person, they're thinking generally about how do I help and serve. And so you walk into a house, you see it's a mess. Spiritual gift of service might go, I need to clean this place up. Spiritual gift of giving might go, I need to sit down with them for a while. And so that's a good way to look at it as well.
If, for instance, I had the spiritual gift of giving, or I thought I might have, but my husband is not so. When you've got combined funds, you got family funds,
Yeah,
that could create problems.
it does.
I mean, if I feel like, okay, I'm gonna give to this, and he said, well, you know, I really was planning on paying a bill ahead of time, or whatever, that could create some
Yep.
issues.
It does, and that's where it comes into where a husband leads well is being able to recognize his wife's spiritual gift and make sure that he allows room for it. And that's where it comes together as working as a team. But yeah, you're right, it can, and that's where the overgiving can get in. You can go, well, I'm gonna give here. An example of this, Dr. Jerry Falwell, he had one of his spiritual gifts was giving. And people would come and they'd give him very specific things that were like for him. And he'd just give it immediately away to someone else. And people would come back and go, no, I gave that specifically for you. And he was like, well, someone else needed it. And he would end up offending someone on accident by that. And with that, it can create relationship tension. And that's where the person with spiritual gift of giving has to be wise, has to be very careful. And really what it comes down to is you can't make someone else sacrifice. It's not sacrifice then. If you want to give $200 to missions, and say you have a family budget to where you go, we have budgeted for myself this certain amount for just my stuff. We have it to where we have a free fund for both of us, that's $200 a month. Well, what you're going to do is you're going to go, I'm not going to spend out of that fund, I'm going to give it instead of making the other person sacrifice. Because you can't make another person sacrifice. It's not sacrifice, son. It's theft. It's taking. And so with that, that's where that balance comes in. And it is going, if you're going to be a giver, you also have to be the sacrificer. Otherwise, it's socialism. That's why you can't have the spiritual gift. You can't say I have the spiritual gift of giving, and the way I do that is I advocate that the government redistributes wealth. No, that's not giving. That's theft.
Honestly, you have to giving, why don't you just give to the government to solve their debt?
Because that's the last person that's gonna pay the debts off, my love.
That's the truth. And so that's where it's when you do have those relationship tension, and that's why you're wise with your finances. You communicate a lot when it's what you want, and then with that is husband's head of household. He does have final say on that, and he'll answer for the Lord for it. Ashley and I have talked about this. My biggest fear as a husband, as about to be husband, is not what she thinks of me. If she's mad at me about something or anything like that's not my biggest fear. My biggest fear is standing before the Lord and the Lord saying, you didn't let her do something that I wanted you to let her do. You prevented her from giving. You prevented her from doing this because you did not lead right. And the Lord is not going to say to her, why didn't you do this when your husband, he's going to say to me, that's your responsibility. And so that's where it comes into husbands need to be very wise of going, when I'm leading and I'm saying, we're not doing, is it because they believe that is the godliest thing to do? And at the end of the day, that's all you can do as a husband leading. Yes.
As someone that's been married a long time, I truly believe that if it's something really that God wants him to do, he's gonna give me a piece about it in any way.
Absolutely.
I mean, so you said that's your fear, standing up for God, him saying you didn't allow her.
Yep.
I think he will let you know.
Yep. Oh, I'd agree.
Now, it might take y'all a little while to realize,
Yep. Well,
but God gives you a piece about what he speaks to her
Yeah.
about.
well,
I truly believe that.
absolutely agree. My fear isn't on me accidentally doing it. My fear is me doing it because I'm sinful, ignoring the peace, because I can. I'm a sinful, fallible man. So is your husband. So is your wife. In case you didn't know, the person you're married to is a sinner.
They can be spiteful.
They, they can be nasty. They can be. It can be sometimes. That's just the reality of it. But still, when we're thinking through it, a husband's sometimes when we talk about, and we're going to be talking about this in a couple weeks when we hit Ephesians 5. We're going to be talking about the relationship of wives submit to their husbands. Husbands, love your wives. The hard tension of that is going to be that a husband is not just responsible for the here and now. He's responsible for the internal impact he allows and leads his wife to. And so in that, if you have the spiritual gift of giving and your husband does it, if your husband spends all his money on hunting gear to where you're now not able to give, when you stand before God, God's not going to say, I gave you a gift and you didn't use it. He's going to say to your husband, I gave her a gift and you didn't let her use it. That's a big deal. And that's where that comes into the protection. We'll talk about this a lot on when we talk about Ephesians 5. The protection for a wife in submission is that the husband will answer for everything he does. And that's why the wife can submit in everything. Because God will, one day, at the rewards, will say, she'll get rewards for what she did as best she could. And the husband will lose rewards if he does not lead her properly. And so that's where that interpersonal conflict of where sometimes if you do have the spiritual gift of giving, you want to give, and your husband's not letting you. Advocate, ask, sacrifice as much as you can, if you can. But at the end of the day, you still aren't able to fulfill your gifting because of his leadership. You can rest assured that God will answer to it. And maybe God will say to you, hey, you did actually lead in finances right. You might be wrong. But he will answer to God for it. So, any other thoughts or questions?
Just a comment.
Yes.
Steve good instance. The hospital called, tried to set up for surgery. I'm just pulling out the driveway to go get the grandkid from school, and the phone rings. It's the hospital calling me. Your husband said you're the head of Warren Finance, I needed to talk to you. So, but it's that, what are you better at?
Mm-hmm.
What is he better at?
Yep.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because God created women as helpmates.
Yep.
Equal in a yoke
Mm-hmm.
of one.
Yep.
So,
And it's
you know, we both mess up, but we both have to come back together.
it's that team effort, and yeah, it is different things that people are good at, and then it's also acknowledging when the other person is doing something. It's an easy thing that can happen. My thing is harder than their thing.
Yeah.
It's so easy to fall into it because
It is.
you feel it. You may go, this takes more physical effort for me. That takes more mental effort for them. The physical thing's more hard, or vice versa. And it's going, no, we've allotted out. We've said this is what you're best at. This is what you're best at, and we're gonna work as a team. And that's where in that as well, spiritual giftings come into play on that, of how people act and think, and being mindful of that. And so, yeah. Well, when we hit Ephesians 5, I've been studying that one for a while. That was something that before I met Ashley, I spent a good amount of time of studying of what does it mean to be a husband, what does it mean to be a wife. Because something that I told her very early on, I refuse to be in an unbiblical marriage.
Oh, what?
An unbiblical marriage.
Oh, okay.
I would rather be single. And that was a conversation. And she, same mindset. That was, we were in agreement on that. And so, but. All right, any other thoughts or questions as we conclude? All right. I realized I didn't do prayer requests at the beginning. So, let's do prayer requests now. Any prayer requests? Man,
I'm having a nerve block done tomorrow, with my hip and back, so.
gotcha.
Praying that's gonna work.
I had a nerve block done in my shoulder. I couldn't move. It was for a while. So have fun with that, but we will be praying for you.
I just hope it works.
Amen.
And John's stepdad
Step
Yeah.
is in the hospital. Keep him in your prayers.
Yeah,
Our
absolutely.
shut-ins,
Shut-ins.
those that are spiritually hurting,
Mm-hmm.
the devil's fighting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If y'all could be praying for me, I've gotten terrible sleep in like the last week. I've been very tired. I think it has to do with just rebounding from the respiratory virus. I think I'm not breathing deep enough while I'm sleeping. And I have sleep apnea, I have a CPAP, but CPAP only blows air into you, it doesn't really make you breathe. And so I think it's that, so if you guys could just be praying for me. Lana?
Brandon, because their house, they cannot return for a couple months because they have to get everything replaced. Half of the house is blocked because it is flooded fully.
Oh my goodness.
And then he also has a family member who is in rehab because he can't stand or walk.
Yeah. What's they have a place to stay?
They're
or-
staying at their grandma's house.
Okay, that's good. Jeez. Any other prayer requests?
Just Dean Allen's traveling,
Yep.
tomorrow.
You're traveling tomorrow?
Yeah, Steve's getting married tomorrow.
Oh, just to let everybody know, Richard's getting married Good Friday. That's my youngest son.
Yeah.
And each other.
For each other?
Mhm.
Yeah. Pray for each other.
The reserver, she's not feeling well tonight.
Okay. All right, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Father, thank you for this day, thank you for what you do, thank you for your love and your grace, Lord. Lord, I do bring all these prayer requests before you. Lord, you know how to meet these needs better than any of us do.
Yes.
Lord, I pray that you would help us, Lord. Lord, help us be a giving church. Lord, let the people with the spiritual gift of giving show us what it means to be cheerful givers, Lord. Lord, we love you. We're so grateful for you. In your son's holy and precious name, amen.